Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. My name is Tanner the Mind Hacker. I have here Paul Leendertse on the line, and also Nathan Francis. And I'm so very grateful to have them here on the line. It's another Men's Roundtable we're going to have. And Paul Leendertse is a specialist in like helping people overcome their cancer. And he's really a pioneer. Actually, I had him on my podcast before. Had him on his podcast, so we're super grateful to have him come back on. Hopefully, I pronounced your name correct, Paul. I know it's hopefully I did. But anyways, yeah, just super grateful to have you guys on, and always grateful to be speaking again with you, Nathan. So, you guys want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Paul?
I give you a 9.5 out of 10 on pronouncing my last name.
Nice. Okay,
So
that's good.
It's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. It's Leendertse.
Oh,
So
Leendertse.
that was great.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. And thanks for being so devoted and passionate about helping create more awareness in the world on how to be healthy, how to be happy, how to and what I kind of love to talk about today is how to grow spiritually, because I think that's one of the things that humanity lacks more than anything else in the whole truther community, in the holistic community, in the alternative community, and of course in the science community, like and in the religious community, like spiritual growth. What is it? But I would love to hear what you guys would like to chat about today. That's something that's coming to me as a topic, but you guys are in charge, so let me know.
It's coming to me as well, Paul. So I think we should delve into that as well.
Yeah,
I got the
definitely.
exact same message you got, mate.
Okay.
I think we're all pretty in tune here, mate. I'm looking forward to this.
Mm.
Yeah, it's definitely a good
Um,
topic to talk about for sure. Because I know, like, for me, I was always like, focused a lot on the health, a lot on like the mental aspect, and my spirituality side was always lacking. I've been trying to focus more on that lately, and it's made a big difference. So I think that is a really powerful thing to talk about, and
mm,
to hear what you guys have to say about it.
okay, right on. I'm so excited to dive into that topic.
Perfect.
Um, I think one thing I want to point out first is like why spirituality and spiritual growth is not practiced today very much and not understood. And I think, and just off the top of my head here, but I think some of the reasons are, um, number one, there are many people that are um, atheists, or let's just say pissed off or upset about religion, because of, if you look at the history of religion, the Christian Crusades coming through and killing off Aborigines because they're not reading the Bible. There's a lot of pain for many people around religion itself. A religion causes a lot of wars. There's so much competition between religion. Like my religion's better than yours, my God is better than yours. I'm following the real God, you're not. So there's a lot of like controversy and stress around religion in many ways. Then we've got science, and some scientific minds would say, if you can't prove something exists, then there's no reason to believe that it even exists. So there's perceptions about God that range from calling God an entity that's outside of you that judges you and expects things of you, and you have to follow like specific rules, and if you don't, you'll go to hell. And then there's beliefs about God are more like there is just simply no such thing as God, period. Some people will call God source. It just varies so much. Um, so there's a lot of reasons why even the word spirituality can be interpreted in just a myriad of ways. So what I want to do is define what I mean by spirituality, and it's what I've just come to understand. Um, And so for me, what spirituality really is, and what spiritual growth is about, is understanding that we all have an ego and we all have a soul. And our soul is what we're born into this world with. You know, we come into the world as an individual right away. We're already an individual. And many parents will can relate to that if they've had multiple children, because they'll notice when they had their firstborn had certain personality traits right away. And then the secondborn is just complete opposite person, kind of person, like totally unique and different, because we come into the world as ourselves already. But we also come into the world, and psychologists would say, describe this as coming into the world as a tabula rasa, which means we're a blank slate. It means we can be imprinted on. And in fact, in our youngest years, we are imprinted on massively, and that's how it's supposed to be. We're designed in such a way where when we come into the world, we can't actually look after ourselves, like, period. If our caregivers, which are supposed to be our parents, our father and our mother, if they are not there, we will die. There's no way around it, unless someone comes in and plays the role of our parents. So unless we have a caregiver, we can't feed ourselves, we can't clothe ourselves. Like in our first weeks and months, we don't even know how to not like defecate in our own pants and pee our pants. Like we're completely dependent. And so what starts to happen is our ego begins to form. It starts being formed, and it's formed from our caregivers and from our variety of experiences that we have. So for example, when I was a kid, my mom, and by the way, before I start talking about parenting and upbringing, I should just point out that parents can only do the best that they can. They just love us however they know how. They feed us however they know how. So if we have a parent that doesn't have a healthy diet, well, they're not going to be able to feed us a healthy diet, because they just, how can they give something they don't have? So there's a spiritual law right there. You can't give what you don't have. So our parents are doing the best they can. And our parents had their own childhood and their own upbringing. And if you go back through the lineages of families, what you will find is that there's a tremendous amount of violence, actually. There's oftentimes violence, trauma. And if you look at the history of humanity, you'll see many wars. I mean, thousands or hundreds of thousands of wars. Like just a few decades ago, we had World War II, right? And then just before that was World War I. And we're talking about some pretty intense things here. There's a lot of trauma that occurs. So if you think about what I've said before, there's children being born into the world all the time, and they're being exposed to many different things. And this is forming our ego. And we need an ego, right? So we need to learn how to feed ourselves. But when we're born, we don't know how. So if our parents have learned through advertising, through movies, through their own upbringing, that it's normal to, let's say, drink alcohol for happiness, and that's a normal part of life, then when we're growing up with our parents, we'll see our parents drinking alcohol as a normal part of life. And so it starts to imprint onto us. And there's a very good chance that then when we reach the age where we can get our hands on alcohol, we'll start drinking. Or if I use the example of eating food, our parents might teach us, like when I was a kid, my mom had me eating cereal for breakfast. That's what you do. And what that really is just a program. It's just like a concept or an approach to life that she has adopted for a variety of reasons. And one reason why my mom probably adopted that is because of the television. Television showing, like when I was growing up, the television, every time a commercial would come, you'd oftentimes see different cereal companies advertising their cereal and showing these kids with happy faces eating like Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms, all these different cereals. And so what's my mom do out of love for me? She just goes and buys those. You know, like the television says do this, and then you go do that. I mean, that's what everyone else is doing. Like if you see it on the TV, everyone must be doing it, or you know, somehow it's important, it has value. So for most of my childhood, I was eating refined sugar, natural flavors. A lot of the cereals that I ate as a kid aren't really classified as food. Like in truth, it's not actually food. It's a variety, like it's a concoction made by man. Whereas, you know, like an orange or a piece of broccoli or an egg from a chicken is not made from man. It comes from, let's call it God, whatever you want to call God, like the source of creation. Somehow something was like this world was created somehow, and it wasn't created by man. So I don't care what we call it, if it's source, God, or whatever, just the creative force, something other than humans made real food. But humans then get this idea like, okay, we're gonna actually we're gonna make food and profit off of other humans for that. So then it's like, oh, well, refined sugar is addictive. So we could put that in food. That would increase sales. And you know, and so on. So lo and behold, because I was raised to eat a certain way, then I just find myself eating that way. You know, all through even as a teenager, I'm getting up in the morning, having breakfast, having cereal for breakfast. And then I'm also suffering though. Like so I've also got like skin problems breaking out. I've got inflammation in my body. And actually, when I was younger, I had a parasite infection because of how I was eating. Constipation, loose stools, and that's not too bad, but if it goes unchecked long enough, it does turn into a full-blown disease. And then if that's not checked, it turns into death. So literally, how we're raised in this sort of indirect way can kill us. Like eventually, later in life, we can just die as a product of our ego. We don't die as a product of our soul. So there's a difference between our ego and our soul. I'll give an example of the soul. Our ego may have learned that we can lie and get away with stuff. You know, like so we can like steal a cookie from the cookie jar and no one knows. So then we reap the benefit of the cookie. But meanwhile, we weren't allowed for some kind of a reason. Let's say we're only supposed to have one cookie a day, but we like sneak in a second one, or whatever the reason is, but we can lie. But you know what's interesting is our soul knows we lied. Like you can't trick the soul. We have a soul. The soul, so there's this internal reality that we all have. So there's one kind of description of the soul, but I could talk about it for a long time. So to try to keep this succinct, what spirituality really is, and as the way that I've come to experience it, is it's a conscious choice to change in positive ways. That's one way you could say it. It's to take responsibility for who and what we are and be willing to dissect ourselves and like psycho-emotionally and look at our programs, look at our behavior patterns, look at our addictions, look at our angers, look at our guilt, look at our fears, and start to try to understand where they're all coming from. Like, so why do I eat the way that I eat? Why do I believe what I believe about money? Why do I believe what I believe about God, about love, about sex? Where did I learn how to communicate? And then if you start asking yourself, okay, well, that a lot of that came from my parents, then you can say, well, how do my parents approach love and health and exercise and beliefs about God and creation. And then you'll start to see that we're all basically a template, or not a template, we're all basically a replica almost of our parents. So spiritual growth is to start transcending our parents, to like take whatever we learned from our parents that's good and continue with that. And then take and then question though what we learned from our parents about like what's not actually good, and then take responsibility for that and start changing it. And so we consciously reprogram ourselves, we consciously rebuild ourselves. And that's what real spirituality is. But a lot of people think that spirituality is going to church on Sunday. So you don't have to change, really. You just have to go to church. And, you know, you don't have to, if you experience stress in your life, it doesn't really have much to do with you. It's just life happening to you. You know, if you experience symptoms in your body, it doesn't have much to do with you. It's just like bad luck, or it's, you know, just too bad, but at least you have like a doctor to go and try to get that fixed for you. But spirituality is realizing that you have an ego complex that has been shaped and formed from your childhood and from anything that's coming into you from the outside, from movies, the news, even friendships when you're young, are all influencing factors. And our ego can change. Like we can break it down and alter it. So like today, I don't drink alcohol. When I was a teenager, I did. Today, I don't drink, or I don't eat cereal for breakfast. When I was a kid, I did. Today, I communicate differently than how I was communicated by my mother as a child. Like, you know, just a huge, lots and lots of changes. And if you really want to be spiritual, you got to go all the way, like to really truly be spiritual. And what I mean by that is you take responsibility for your physical values, systems, and beliefs. Like food is a physical thing, but you take responsibility for how you use your mind, and you take responsibility for your emotional reality, and you take responsibility for your belief systems, your spiritual reality. You know, your relationship with creation, your relationship with God, your relationship with yourself. How do you love yourself? Like, do you love yourself? And that's a big one, because in childhood, our parents can only give us what they had. So, for example, in childhood, if you made a mistake, this is common when I'm looking, like when I'm doing this deeper root cause work with people with cancer or with any kind of health challenge. A common thing that happens in most people's childhoods is if you make a mistake, you're beaten. You know, like you're punished. If you make a mistake, you're either physically or emotionally punished. So then literally, we can live our whole life trying not to make mistakes because we don't want to experience that pain again. Or if we do make a mistake, we can just carry guilt and shame, like we're punishing ourselves. But that's not even love. And there's a different way to approach mistakes, you know, so we can alter our ego construct and start learning a difference. For example, it's impossible not to make a mistake, first of all. Like the very nature of being a human being is that we're imperfect. We're in a learning process. Like how can we possibly not make a mistake? Like everybody has been late before, probably. Like everyone's probably knocked something off a shelf and broke a thing. Like who is excluded from mistakes? Nobody. So why is punishing and harming a person for a mistake going to solve that? The mistake itself is oftentimes the lesson. You like if you're reckless and you knock something off a shelf and it breaks, that sucks. Now you broke your cell phone. So the thing that matters is that you learn. Imagine if you, like a lot of people break their cell phones today. I see cracked screens all the time. Imagine if you had a parent following you around, and if you dropped your cell phone, they smacked you across the face or grounded you for a week. like that doesn't build different habits. It doesn't help you realize, okay, like why did you break your cell phone? How did that happen? Like what was like were you rushing? What's the reason? And then the thing to do is to learn. Just learn actually from the mistakes. And that's the most important thing. But when people are punished, especially children, when they're punished, they don't actually learn, and then they just start to live in fear. And then, like I said, carry a guilt complex so that's another part of spirituality, is to learn, like to actually learn and grow and continue to evolve all throughout life. But society likes to teach us that we don't need to change. Like you just go to school. When you're done school, now you're good. Other than learning some particular skills for like a job, like how to swing a hammer or how to type on a keyboard or something, you got to learn those skills, of course, to make money. But in terms of your spiritual evolution, your mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, and your health, and the awareness around all that, we don't need to even look there. So that's the case today. For the vast majority of humanity, is there's no real spirituality being practiced. And if stress is encountered or symptoms is encountered, we look outside of ourselves, and don't want to look in. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't look in, but as just a basic explanation, I would want to also say that it's not easy to actually grow spiritually either. It's not just a walk in the park. It's like a real responsibility. It's really part of becoming a spiritual adult. So it's not easy, but it's one thing to just abandon that altogether or not even understand what that even is or the need for it. But then there's also, in some cases, people just don't want to go there at all. They just want to live in sort of denial. Like there's nothing I need to change. The only reason problems have happened in my life is because this world sucks, or because because some other person acted the way they did and did whatever. So like, there's nothing I can do. I don't have to change anything myself. And that's a product of childhood too, because when we're raised, our parents are never in the wrong. Whenever we have stress with our parents, they're never in the wrong. And if we ever have stress with our authorities that we're handed over to, like a teacher, they're never in the wrong. In fact, they're all teaching us what's right and what's wrong. Like they know, like they're perfect beings. And then bam, we go out into the world and start running into this reality where all this stress happens, symptoms appear in our body, and we don't know why. But like I said, we're also taught that if that happens to you, which it happens to pretty much everyone, you just go to a doctor and they'll fix you. So there's my kind of overview of spirituality. And the reason I want to focus on it so much is because I really believe it's one of the most important things for humanity to actually practice in order to make the world a better place, in order to make our lives a better place. And it's not practiced and it's not understood. Even in the alternative communities, like the number of people that have come to me and done a session with me to see, if I could help them. Like I have the highest percentage of people that come to me do one session, I never hear from them again. But more and more people are starting to stick to the process. And so in that one session, what they're kind of trying to find out is like, what's the root cause of their cancer? And that 90% of the time we figure that out in one session. 99% of the time we figure that out in one session. And then two, what do I have to do to change? Right? Like, what do I need to do to actually start practicing spirituality and learn what that is and go into this inner transformational journey to heal myself? But in the alternative community, spirituality often isn't practiced, unfortunately. It's a big, huge step away from the medical approach to life, which is that you just take a drug or have your body cut open and that'll fix the problem, unfortunately. And like a lot of people suffer tremendously because of that. Sometimes it works in the short run, and depends what we're talking about. Like an accident can save a person's life, but overall it's sort of like just suppressing symptoms, like just trying to cover over symptoms, is not really helping a person change for the better and change their life. And then in the alternative approach, it's less symptom causing. Like, you know, you take a vitamin supplement. Well, if you take a vitamin supplement, you don't end up with like liver failure necessarily, like side effects of drugs. Like all drugs have massive side effects. In the alternative community, there's a lot of safe things, you know, things you can do that might even benefit your overall vitality. They could increase your nutrient profile, stuff like that. But it's still not spirituality. It's still not the depth of like emotional healing, of changing our belief systems, of like transforming our life, like looking at our relationship dynamics, looking at our fears, really looking at our ego, you know, to really look at our ego and what it is, and start understanding there's a difference between our ego and our soul. Okay, so I should take a breather because I think that was my intro for spirituality, but I see you guys nodding and probably having some ideas, and I'll
Yeah.
give you guys some space to share too.
Perfect. I mean, yeah, that was,
Thanks for listening so well for so long.
yeah, of course. Yeah, it was awesome. It was actually really piqued my interest. I actually wrote a couple notes down because there's a lot of good things we can talk about from what you broke down. You know, some of that really piqued my interest is like your definition of like spirituality, right? Because I've actually never heard that definition of spirituality. When I think about it from that point of view, then I have been practicing spirituality for a lot longer than I thought I really have. I thought spirituality is really more like thinking about it from a point of view like connecting with God or a higher source, or you know, the fact that we're all connected on like a level, you know, looking out something like outside yourself. But I've been working on my inner self for a long time, you know, focusing on reprogramming my mind, focusing on like addressing those beliefs and like the traumas and the things that I had going on in my life for a while now. So when I look at that way, I feel like I'm a lot more spiritual. So I was really piqued my interest. I've never heard someone explain it that way. What's your opinion on that, Nathan?
Oh, it's spot on because it's the same work I'm doing as well. You know, for a long time I was a lot like Paul. You know, I'd eat the shit food in the morning and then go to school and do something I didn't like, and I was in fear of making a mistake. And some of those things that you brought up, Paul, were currently what I was sitting in for the last probably 2 days. So thank you for sharing what you shared, because you helped me shift something within when I was listening to you. So thank you for sharing what you shared.
Right on.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's I share some of those things because they're so common. I mean, the system kind of like brings children through this step-by-step process that's basically the same for everybody. So there's a lot of common forms of damage that we suffer because of our upbringing. And our, you know, our upbringing lacks love. It really lacks love in many, many ways. It took me years to figure out what love even is, you know, to really even understand love. Is sex love? No, it's not, because you can have sex with someone and not actually love them. Is money love? No. Can you do loving things with money? Yes, but money itself is not love. If you beat someone at a game, is that love? No, that's power. Like, what the heck is love, you know? Yeah, it's spirituality is like coming to another way. I could define it in different ways, but being another way to define it would be to just be devoted to awakening, to becoming aware of the truth. Like, so what is the truth? Sometimes when I say that, people get triggered. Like, well, there's your truth, you can have your truth, I can have my truth, but that's not what I mean. I mean, yeah, we all have our own individual truths. I call that truth with small t. But the truth is something that exists outside of you and me. So for example, the truth is that we need to be hydrated to be alive. And the only way we can be hydrated is if we're consuming water. You can't hydrate yourself with something other than water. So now again, it's kind of interesting because who created water? Well, not a human being. And water sustains our life and all life on the planet. But who created alcohol? Man. Who created pop with 10 teaspoons of refined sugar? Corporations. Coffee with caffeine in it that causes all kinds of problems. The longer you drink it, the problems start to emerge and get worse and worse. It's just all these billion-dollar industries that aren't based in love. So you could say that water has love built right into it because it actually serves you, supports you. So in many ways, we're taught from our upbringing to not love ourselves. We're taught to do that. Like, don't love yourself, not with those words, but just basically through our programming and through commercials and everything. So the reality is, if we have symptoms in our body, it's because we've not been loving ourselves. But it just turns into a crisis because it's like, well, shit, I was never taught how to love myself. So what do I do? And that's why a lot of times when people have cancer, they start to change. Cancer is a massive motivating force. It blasts your ego open. You start going like, what, like asking questions, like what the hell's going on? So cancer, spiritually speaking, cancer for many people will start shaking up their world and they'll start wanting to like change. Not everyone, but so oftentimes what people will do is they'll start changing their diet, for example. Fantastic, amazing. But to really be spiritual, you got to go all the way. Like I said, you got to look at your emotions. You got to look at your belief systems about love, God, creation. Why are you standing in the reality that you're in? Why do you have this tumor? Because just juicing, the number of clients that I've had that come to me and say, Paul, I've been juicing for the last year and my cancer's just been growing and growing, is just off the charts. Like for me, it's so obvious to me because of the position that I'm in, like the number of people that I work with, that juicing is not the solution to cancer. And I just see it over and over again because juicing is just a physical thing. And the thing that damages us the most is our emotional and spiritual realities. So learning what spirituality is so important.
Yeah, that is super important. And I want to touch on the part too about like the kids and the programming, because I have my son Oliver. He's a year and 8 months, and that's something I always think about like daily is like, how am I teaching him how to love himself? What examples am I like, what in which ways am I programming him? Something we plan on doing. Well, something we always plan on doing, or that we always do, is like, we like, if we are in the wrong, we do apologize to him. We say, I'm sorry.
Nice.
I shouldn't have acted like that. I'm sorry, dad made a mistake, right? Something like that, which you're right. I think a lot of people don't apologize to their kids. Maybe they don't think they understand it, or they don't want to take that time to do it, but it is super important. I definitely believe so. We have already thought about like, he's not going to the school system. He's definitely going to be at home, unschooled, and really just child-led learning, right? Because I talked with you about it. I did my own research on unschooling, and it was just like a big mental like epiphany that, hey, the school system, like I kind of like had my feelings before, but after doing more and more research on it, just realizes how harmful it is to the individuals, and how much negative programming there is there. So like it definitely, and I think it like drives people more away from spirituality, right? Like it teaches you, like, you tell me the answer, and if I come up with my own answer, it's wrong, right? Like it doesn't foster that like independent, like creative thinking to like look inwards and find your own answers. It just like, it's just like, you this is the way you do it, this is how you do it. If you don't do it this way, you're wrong. If you want to learn this, not this, then you're wrong too. You have to do it this way, right? And it's just like, it definitely, when I look back on it, definitely killed a lot of my my self-learning and my like spirituality. So I think that is just a really important topic. And that's actually what I was thinking we might talk about today as well. It's just like the school system and emotions. So I'm glad it actually, I mean, all kind of ties in together, right?
Mhm.
Which makes sense. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, and then I know Nathan's also very passionate about that as well. So,
Yeah, if you want to listen to my first chat with Paul, about an hour in, I went on an epic rant about that, didn't I, Paul, with some school stuff back then?
Yeah, I just loved that interview that we did. That was fantastic.
But
Passionate
yeah,
topic. Yeah.
it is a very passionate topic, and it's one that really brings out passion in me as well, because I see it all the time with these kids. You know, these children, they don't want to be there, and they get labeled with all these things, and they're told that they can't do something, and that they're wrong, and that they have these issues, but they don't have any issues. They just don't want to be in that system, being told what to do every single day. They just want to be free, and they were born. We're all born as free, right? They're born free, and they're just getting cocooned in this little box. They don't want to be in that box. They want to be just learning and experiencing life, playing in the dirt, playing in the sand. You know,
Yeah.
doing those things that they were doing before they were dumped inside a school system. These days, they're dumped inside these daycare systems as babies, like completely handing the child away to be raised by the state these days. It's actually quite sad, but that's the system, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I feel like
And it's not
that's
just
what
the
they're
children,
forcing.
it's got the parents trapped as well, to a point where, well, shit, we can't live unless our children are inside these systems, being brainwashed, indoctrinated, and told something that's not exactly true. It's one person's perception of what's true. So then that child's more inclined to believe that perception when they have their own perception. But if their perception's wrong, then it must be the teacher's perception then. And then that just destroys the whole belief system. And then you look at the last 3 years, everyone's looking up at authority, like someone lead me, someone guide me out of the shit show that's currently going on. It's like, well, we can guide ourselves, but inside the school system, we weren't taught to guide ourselves. We were taught to sit at assembly like a good little student with our legs crossed and our focus up, looking up at a principal or a headmaster for authority and guidance and leadership. And then what's everyone doing on the TV, looking up at these fake leaders wearing their red and blue ties and their blue suits, saying, lead me, guide me, show me the way out of the mess that's been created by the same people that were leading you out of it. And it all starts inside that school system. And it's spiritually, Paul, you're spot on, mate. Spiritually, it destroys children. But not only that, it destroys the teachers inside that system too, because I only lasted 6 months and it was soul destroying to me as well, reflecting back on it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've done sessions with teachers before with cancer. And when we look at the root cause of their cancer, in their scenario, it was related to the situation that they were stuck in, because it's not lining up with their soul, but then they don't know how to change it. So they end up just staying in a soul sucking experience or a soul damaging experience.
I've got a question about that for you, actually. Sorry to cut you off. I actually got a question about that for teachers. Do you find that it's the things that they've said to the children as well? Like they've been a huge part in that child's life, and that child's, who knows what they're doing. They might be in the drugs and in jail or whatever. It's like, does that teacher hold a lot of guilt and shame for the things they might have said to children as well? Because I know for me, when I was told that I couldn't do something, it destroyed me. Do you find that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the things that they've said.
So before I say too much about teachers, because like when I talk about all this stuff, when we start going in deeper, then we got to look at where things are out of alignment with love, like where things are not serving life actually. And it can be difficult to actually start looking at the truth of things. So it's easy for me to just piss somebody off, like like trigger someone and make them feel like I'm attacking them. But what I'm really doing is I'm talking about the whole system, like you pointed out. And so teachers are doing the best they can to survive in this world, and they're actually operating on their own ego constructs, and they came from the school system, and so then there's a wide variety of teachers, right? Like everything is very subjective. So there's some there's some teachers out there that damage kids and they have no idea what they're doing. They don't realize
Yeah.
how much they're damaging kids. And then there's others that may say that they're not damaging kids. But something else that's important to just point out is that teachers aren't taught how to love children. Like that's not part of their education or training, like how to raise a child, how to love a child, how to teach a child what their needs are and how to look after themselves, you know. They're just taught to pass on information. So they get a textbook and a curriculum, and okay, your job is to fill this kid's head with this many chapters over the next year, and you got to make that happen. And if they're not paying attention, punish them.
Spot on.
Like
That sums up. That sums up my 4 years at university. It's like we got showed these bullshit learning theories. It's like you're an authoritarian, you're something else. And I was like, I don't want to be anything other than myself. Even in that moment, I was like, I don't want to just fit the mold and be an authoritarian. What even fuck is an authoritarian? What? You're just gonna stand there and preach and just like follow my orders and it's my way or the highway. It's like, no, I didn't resonate with any of those bullshit learning theories or learning structures at university. I was always like, I want to do this my way.
Yeah, it brings up, you know, there's a big, like without, usually this is all unconscious, like until you start practicing spirituality and awakening and becoming conscious, what's really going on is everything is just happening unconsciously. Like you're just doing what you're supposed to do. You're just like following this inner programs, and this is like normal, you know. Just like I said, it's normal for kids as soon as they're of age to start drinking alcohol. That's just normal. That's what we do. Like that's how you create happiness. That's how you have fun. And then like at some point people realize, wait a second, that causes disease and causes drinking and driving accidents, and sometimes people even die, and like it causes abuse in relationships, it causes sexual trauma. Like, whoa, wait a second. So it's not actually normal. So the whole system in every single career this is infused right into it, this unconsciousness and just operating on a program. So I want to talk about the soul with regards to raising a child and the soul and how the school impacts it. But I wanted to give you an example of a recent client that I was working with. And what happened when they were in school is that one day they were about 5 years old, and one day they came to school and they didn't have, or somehow they forgot their gym outfit. So when you go to gym class, you have to change into your gym clothes. They forgot their clothes. So what the teacher did to punish them is to force them to do the entire gym class in their underwear in front of all their peers. So when I was working with my client, we're going back into the past and trying to understand why today, as an adult, there's challenges in relationships, and then these are one of the memories that came. So here's an example of how when you hand your kids over to a stranger that's not taught how to actually love your child, and they're taught to punish your child if they don't behave, and they're taught to reward your child if they do behave and follow all the rules. This is the kind of stuff that happens. And this is a light example. I could share with you lots of other really damaging things. So there's an example of humiliation, shaming, guilt tripping a person. And then you look at 2020, how much shaming and guilt tripping was occurring there. And what we're actually taught is that guilt tripping a person and shaming them is love. We're actually taught that that's love. So like the teacher that did that to the child, what do you think's going on in her mind? She's thinking like, this is good, what I'm doing. This is good for this child. Like, but has no idea. She's just completely unconscious, though, as to the reality that that's actually traumatizing the child. It's not love, it's actually trauma. And so there's a lot of this going on. Like humanity is very unconscious to love in all kinds of ways. And until you start to practice spirituality, it's not going to change.
We were born as love. We were born pure love. But it's as soon as we exit that womb, we get the trauma starts, doesn't it? Because the men these days get part of their dick cut off. That's an instant trauma as soon as you're straight out. But it's like you could even have trauma in the womb if the mother was like when you're in the womb as well, there's trauma in the womb. So I've gone back to the womb for me. I've in my own healing, and there was trauma there as well. But it's
common.
like they say we're born pure love, but if we're in the womb, then it's like before we're in the womb as pure soul form, we are love. But it's as soon as we, do you see where I'm going with that?
I see where you're going. There's something I want to comment on about it.
Go for it.
Because there's something I've come to like sort of has been revealed to me like in all this work for all these years, getting into these deeper realms. And I think it's more accurate to say that we are innocent.
Yes.
When we're born. Because, for example, a child might be like let's say we've got like a 3-year-old and they're playing with their crayons and no parents are around and they're just like, whoa, this is so cool. I love this. Like all over the paper. And then like, I have a great idea. I'm going to do it on the walls too. You know? And it's like, well, that's not really, it's not that it's not a loving thing to do. So like what you're saying is the child is just love. Like they're not trying to cause a problem for the parents, but that's a problem. Drawing crayons all over, you know, that's actually a big problem. So I just want to bring in that innocence word there because as a child, we do lots of things that because we're just simply not aware. We don't know about boundaries. That's a big thing. Like we don't have boundaries. Little children can pick up a kitten and just like swing it around by the tail, laughing, thinking like, wow, this is what you do to this toy. So, but yeah, in general, we're just loving beings, but we're innocent and naive. So now it comes to the soul. So when you're trying to parent a child, it's not an easy task, but the goal kind of is to, first of all, understand that they have a soul. And in many ways, they don't need you. That's like one of the most important things to understand. In terms of their evolutionary process of their soul, they don't need you. They need you to feed them. They need you to shelter them. And they need you to be there when they are afraid. That's huge. Like if a child's crying, go to them and be with them. I have a resource video about how to deal with a child crying coming out. It's like 45 minutes long, so I'm just going to skip that. But if you're interested in finding that resource, it'll be out sometime soon, like how to deal with a child when they're crying. But they really need attention. I can quickly say like, but they don't need to be saved from their emotion and saved from their pain. They just need to know that it matters that they're like that, like that they matter. Someone cares, actually. Like, whoa, you're in pain. I care. So to just abandon a child when they're crying is really traumatizing. And a lot of parents are taught to do that. There's even books out there, you know, you should, like it's detachment parenting. Let your kid cry. That's how they grow. Not really. That's actually how they get traumatized and suppress emotions and then just learn that no, this world isn't safe and no one actually cares. So then aside from that basic quick explanation, they have a soul and they have desires. And this is how they start to learn about who they are and how they learn about the world. So if a child's like, you know, I want to go over there and explore that thing, then it's really essential that they get to do that. Like that they go over and explore that thing. Now, you as a parent, if you know that that thing is a dog tied up, growling and snarling, then you're gonna have to like explain to your child, like, listen, you don't understand, but that thing could really hurt you badly. So then what's important is to connect to them, like really connect to them and try to understand them. Like, why do they want to go explore the dog? Ask them, why do you want to go explore? Like, try that. There's so many different age categories here. Like, so different ages, it's going to be different scenarios. So, but just as a general explanation, like connect to the child. Don't just be an authority. Like oftentimes, and you got to have enough time and energy too. Like Tanner was saying, many parents, they're just stuck. There's like so many responsibilities already. So how can you have responsibility for a child too? That's a real problem, right? Like it's another problem in society. We're taught like having a child is just an exciting endeavor. Like you go get married and then you have a kid. And then like many people, like most of my friends from the past, all have told me personally, all of them without an exception, Paul, do not have children.
Yep. There's so much negative programming.
Like, my God, it's such a responsibility. Because it is. It's one of the biggest responsibilities you ever have. But it's taught like it's exciting. Like it's like easy. Like this is like a big achievement in your life if you have a child. It's like, no, actually, this is like one hell of a responsibility. And the children inherit the earth. So if you look at the earth today and how it's been managed and what's been happening, that's because children at the past inherited it, and this is what they've done to it. It's because of their childhood, so it's a massive responsibility. So with that dog example, connect to the child, and try to understand them. So I understand you want to go see the dog. It's exciting. You've never seen the dog before, but I need to like look after you, and I know that dog could be dangerous. So I'm like, this is why I'm telling you that you can't go. So you got to teach your child boundaries like as carefully as you can, but through connection, so you're sort of a safe guide for them learning about life. In other scenarios, the child might want to just go over and check out like the ant crawling across the sidewalk. Well, now just get the hell out of the way. You don't have to friggin', let them go over and do their thing and let them learn. So it's like, try to let them learn on their own as much as possible and interfere only when you really think you need to. But we're often taught, like society teaches us, that we have to create that child. Like our responsibility is to make all their decisions for them and basically program them. But our soul is the ultimate guide. That's the gift from God. So it's the soul of the child that goes, go over there and check out the ant. And it's the soul of the child that says, go check out the dog. But they have a relationship with you. They have a soul contract with you. So there's a reason why the child is going, I want to go check out the dog, because now you're being connected to something that you need to encounter on your soul journey, which, for example, is to learn how to connect to a child, learn how to set healthy boundaries, learn how to communicate, learn how to be assertive. So one extreme or the other isn't good. If you give your child too much freedom, that can be a problem too. If you don't give them enough, then that's a problem. So you try to somehow walk the middle path. And this is like one of the teachings in the Bible, actually, in one of the religions. It's like the middle way is the way to God. But the school system is not the middle way. The school system is, we are going to turn you into a robot,
Yeah.
We're in charge of you, not, you don't have a soul, If you want to connect to someone's soul, you just ask them, for example, what would you like to learn? That's how you connect to a child's soul. And they're going to be like, I want to learn about clouds. What the hell are those things? They're so cool. And then you go out with your son or your daughter and you lay in the grass for half an hour and just watch the clouds. You have one of the most beautiful, memorable experiences with your child, probably, because their soul guided you right into it. But what the school system is, it just bypasses the soul and says, guess what? Today you're going to learn French. Like, fuck, you know, I learned French in school, and I think I was forced to learn French starting in grade 4. And then next year, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 6 years of torture learning French. And now for some, it's subjective, right? Like, so some people might actually love to learn French. But the point is, do you want to? Like, what is your soul telling you? I didn't want to learn French, and I've never used French in my whole life, and I still don't have any need for it today. There's no need for me to learn French. And there never has been. Now, if somehow I start getting clients that are French, or let's say, then I'll be like, oh, okay, then it's time for me to learn French. And guess what? I would learn that freaking language in like a couple of months because I want to then, you know, like it's actually meaning, and it's like, it's important to me for my journey. But why does everyone in Canada have to learn French? It's just politics and belief systems and egos and stupid shit. Like, so I've added up how much time of my life was wasted because of that. And like, just quick math here, I don't care how accurate it is. 6 years at an hour a day times, say, half the year, let's just say 100 days a year, 600 days times an hour each of those days. So 600 hours, like that's how much time of my life was taken by the school system, just taken from me. And what did I learn after all of that? Today I can say, je m'appelle Paul, and bonjour, and au revoir.
From 600 hours.
Yeah.
600 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted to learn it, I guarantee you I could learn how to speak French. I don't know, in like 100 hours or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Way faster than that, because I'd really be in it with from my soul.
Yeah,
100%.
I really resonate with that because like
Same.
I found like in my own experience with like school, and you know, I was always like, I felt like a pretty smart kid, but I just wasn't interested in the stuff they were teaching, right? Like, and so like I wanted to really apply myself. And then when I got out of the school system and started to actually do research into like health stuff and the things I actually wanted to learn, I was actually like reading again. Like I used to maybe like enjoy some like passion reading and stuff like that, but the school system just cut it out of my life. And then when I started to get like interested in actually learning information, I'm now reading books again, right? Like that was something I like was just like destroyed. Like I did not like to read anymore because the school system forced me to read things I didn't want to read, right? And
Wow.
yeah, and like the un the like the unschooling, like whole like idea behind unschooling, the more I've learned into like looked into that, the more I realized just like how important it is to let the kids choose what they want to learn, right? There's no set time frame. Like, sure, this kid may learn the ABCs at this age. This kid may learn the ABCs when they're 5 or 6. This person may learn to read and write when they're 4. This person might learn to read and write when they're like 12, right? There's no right or wrong. It's just like based on where you're ready to do it. And then just like you were talking about, like people will learn it fast when they're actually wanting to learn the information. Like it's much different than being forced to do something against your own will. And I actually have a couple of different points on like when you were talking about the kids and like with like the dog situation, everything like that, because it's something I think about like with my son as well. You know, there's always like the phrase like when kids are upset, right? Parents are just like, you are okay, you are okay. How do you know they're okay, right? There's not a lot of the times these kids are not okay. That's why they're upset. That's why they're crying. And you saying you are okay is actually like taking that away from them, right? Just like you're not allowed to feel that. You're okay. Just stop feeling that, right? Like just putting a band-aid on it and kind of smothering it. So instead, you know, we say, yeah, are you feeling upset? Are you feeling this? Like we encourage him to feel it and to talk about it. I mean, he's only like a year and 8 months, so you can't fully say some of these words, but you know, he goes like, yeah, And like, he starts to talk more, and like he's learning to actually express his emotions, right? So
Mm-hmm.
something else I thought about too is like when they're going like to like a dangerous situation, or they're doing something that the parent might deem unsafe. A lot of parents say, "Be careful, be careful, be careful," right? And that's just like programming them to think that, hey, I might mess up, I might mess up, and say, hey,
Yeah,
make sure you're aware of where you're stepping, right? Like
right,
actually say what they need to be careful about, and then don't repeat yourself 100 times. Like, let them actually focus on
nice.
the thing, right? Um,
Right, give them some instruction, and then
exactly,
let go, hand it over to them.
exactly. It's like that balance thing you were talking about, right? Like the focus play. Like something also I notice is like when I'm playing with my son, sometimes he'll just go into the zone, right? And I think I've found myself sometimes like wanting to be a part of that, and I actually distract him from his play. So I've learned to take a step back. Me and my wife are trying to learn to just take a step back and say, well, he's actually focused play right now, so we're just going to let him do his thing. When he wants to play with us, he'll come back to us. So it's actually interesting because like you can tell when a kid goes into a focused play state, and they're just super zoned into it. Like they don't even notice you anymore, right? They're just in
Yeah,
their play state. So like
nice.
don't distract them. Let them do what they're doing. And I think that's exactly like what you were talking about. Like let them go into their learning state. Like let them go and experience what their soul or their spirit wants them to experience, because that's what they need to experience at that point. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yep.
And sometimes like part of life is also learning the
Mm-hmm.
hard way, like through
Yep.
pain.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if somewhere along the line the belief systems got involved and it was like, okay, you need to create the pain in your child so that they learn. Like that's not, you
Yeah.
don't need to do that. Like the
Mm-hmm.
child, if they make a poor decision, they're going to experience pain existentially already. Like if,
Mm.
like for example, if no one's around and they go approach some dog that's tied up that they don't know, they could get bit by the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So there's their pain. You don't need to now go and spank them or like emotionally harm them. Life creation is built in such a way where when we go off course or like when we're doing something that's anti-loving or anti-life supportive, the creation itself tells us. It's just like if you drink too much alcohol, you find out because you smash your face on the ground because you passed out, or you throw up on yourself, or you lose control and abuse someone, and then you already suffered the pain. So, but humans try to play God, they try to come in and be like, oh, well, I'm gonna double punish you and not talk about the real lessons. Um, Yeah, I love everything you just said, Tanner. I love the word focused play. I've never heard that before. And not to interfere, like
Yeah.
let the kid be free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I got to give credit to a lot to my wife, because she does a lot of the research into that subject and shares with me. And so very grateful that I have a partner that's like also very spiritual as well, learning information and sharing that information with me, because, I definitely attribute her to being a better parent, a more conscious parent, right? Like that's super important, I think, just to be learning. And I'm also grateful that like we were actually able to intentionally become parents, right? Like we were like, okay, we're gonna have a kid, so we need to prepare ourselves. Like we did a lot of reading books and like trying to learn like how to be parents, like learning how to actually like foster the growth in the kid, and like not do anything negative to them, right? I mean,
Mm,
you can never be fully prepared to be a parent, but I'm a big believer that a lot of our society unfortunately does not prepare themselves in like any way, you know
mhm.
regarding either like learning like how they're going to give birth, like looking at like how to eat when they have a kid, or how to feed the child, or how to feed themselves, even like doing the inner
Uh-huh.
work on yourself before you even have a kid, like.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Uh,
am grateful I was able to go down that path for that. So
yeah, that's good to hear. I love that you and your wife are taking it so seriously in a spiritual way, where you're not just assuming that you can just parent like it's an instinct, like you're working on yourself. And yeah, we all just do the best we can. But it's one thing if you're doing the best you can from your subconscious, where
Yep.
just all your programs are.
Mhm.
Something I wanted to mention, I'm running out of time. I have to go shortly, but
Okay.
one thing that I want to bring awareness to with regards to parenting is that oftentimes parents are afraid to expose their children to challenges in the relationship, or they're afraid to expose their children to the fact that they have sex. And these two areas are oftentimes hidden at all costs to children. Like if you have a challenge, you got to go hide in the other room and then work it out together. Never ever let your child see that. But what it does is and this is really common. I understand like some of the logic of it. Like you don't want to cause stress for your child, but at the same time, your child needs to learn about life. Like that's one of the things we're doing as a parent is we're saying, okay, look, honey, this is life. But again, like with the school system, we're saying, okay, well, you don't need to learn about life. You just need to go into this prison and learn about French. But like life means relationships and love, like love relationships, like intimate relationships. And that's such a massive part of life. It's like it's one of the biggest components of life. So to work on your challenges in front of children is a really great idea, I think. And I've heard examples of children helping being part of the solution to a challenge.
Wow.
Like where a little 6-year-old child's like, Daddy, I think he worked too much. Like, shit, that's exactly right. You know, like our children have a soul contract with us. They don't yes, they're a soul, but they're a soul that's come specifically to you as a parent. Like they're not designed for other parents. It's like they're designed for you as a parent. They're there for a reason. And they are a teammate. Like they should be included. And like of course you don't want to now here's the thing. If you're in a challenge with your partner, if someone's in a challenge with their partner and it's not like progressing in a positive way, it's not truly becoming resolved and progress is being made, then what oftentimes happens is it becomes more and more and more intense. And it could get to a heightened level where at some point the child, for example, would just start crying. So that's a good sign that whatever the focus is so far in trying to resolve the issue is the wrong focus. Now the child's just let the parents know because it's crying. Like if a resolution was coming, the child wouldn't be crying. So it's essential to then like take some conscious breaths. Conscious breathing is a massively helpful tool for parenting. And then just try, it's easier said than done, right? But try to set it aside for now, take a breather, you know, say sorry to the child for that mommy and daddy are having a challenge or they're trying to sort something out. And you know, go for a walk and then do reflections. Each parent, that's a key thing. Each parent, like the father looks at himself, the mother looks at herself. What is it that she or he are doing that's out of harmony with love, like out of alignment, and try to do that reflecting. And then be with the child, you know, be with its emotions. But it's also important to actually grow. Like, if children are just exposed to constant fighting that never actually has any fruits, then that can just be a major problem. So if it's like really intense, for example, if the fighting is severe, then perhaps it's a good idea to just like hide, keep that away from the child because you don't want to expose it to unfruitful things. So again, it's a balance, right? Like not one extreme or the other, but some kind of middle way, but not to just hide challenges from children because then they never get an exposure to, they don't have an example to follow really, you know? So that's one thing I wanted to bring attention to. And don't try to hide sex either. Like religion's already done enough damage there. Teaching people that Jesus came from, like, there wasn't even sex. Like, sex doesn't even exist. Jesus was just born out of thin air. Like Jesus was never a sperm. Sex is like one of the things that we have to understand big time.
Mhm.
Sex is
Yep.
one of the major problems in the world, you know?
Yeah.
Sexual damage and like so children need to know that sex is a real thing, not just through the education system, like, but actually observe. I don't mean like have sex in front of your kids, but like have some exposure to some connection, some intimacy. Like don't just try to hide it like it's some kind of a danger zone.
Yeah.
What are they
I
taught
mean,
in school, Paul? They're taught in school to put condoms on bananas, mate.
Right?
yeah,
Like,
I definitely got some input on that too, because like that is something that me and my wife make sure we do. Like when we do have a disagreement, like we don't hide it, right? And we make sure that he sees us making up afterwards, right? Whether that's, saying I'm sorry, giving each other a hug, giving each other a kisses. And something that's really helped in our relationship is, you know, both accepting that, hey, we took 100% responsibility for our part of the disagreement, for our part of the fight. Because I think a lot of people get into the fact of like, no, it was you're the one who caused the problem. No, you're the one who caused the problem. Well, at the end of the day, it takes two people to tango, right? It takes two people to create that
absolutely.
problem. And
Yeah,
so like that's something that's really helped in our like relationship, just saying like when we were like towards the end of the fight, just say, I take 100% responsibility. She takes 100% responsibility. And then we may have to come back to it later, or whatever it may be. But like if we know it's not going to like be resolved, we just take 100% responsibility for it, and then we come back to it and talk about it again another time. And that always just changes it, right? Because like it's so easy to go into like a childish like attack response with like even someone you love, right? Like your partner, and then that becomes like you obviously don't want your kid to see that. So it is important to realize that, hey, this is the person that I love. This is, and if I have my kid around, I want them to learn how to love people, how to treat people with respect. And so I think that is super important. So yeah, I really resonated with that as well. So, and just
awesome.
grateful to have this talk.
Yeah.
So,
I got
Yeah,
lots
so
to. I've got
thanks
lots
so
to
much,
ponder.
guys.
You're a bit ahead of me, guys. So I'm sitting here just soaking it all in like a sponge. It's been really awesome to listen to all of that. You've
Thanks
helped
for
me. You're gonna
listening.
help me evolve. Gonna help me evolve. It's awesome. Thanks, man.
Amazing. Before I go, I wanted to share a book that came to mind. It's one of the books that I recommend to everyone that takes my level 1 training, and it's How to Be an Adult by David Rico. It's like a Bible of adulthood. Really, really potent stuff in there. You could read that book like once a year, and it would probably be like a new book each time.
okay.
There's some good
I'll,
stuff in there.
yeah, I'll add that to my list for sure.
Same here, adding it too. Thanks, Paul. You're a good man.
You're welcome. Yeah, maybe I can finish just by describing quickly my level 1 training, because
Yep.
it's my level 1 training is about spirituality. I teach a real self emotional healing process, or a real self healing process, and it's both emotional and spiritual, and it's 15 steps, and it's like it's a tool for spirituality. It's something I feel like I've put this together over 13 years of working on the root cause of cancer with people. And this tool is essential for growing through challenges, because we're not taught how to grow through challenges. We're just taught a power struggle because of school. Like you get in a challenge with someone, it's like who's going to be the winner and who's going to be the loser. But spiritual
Yes.
growth is a very different thing. So that's what I teach in my level 1 training. And then with my level 1 training, I teach the root cause of cancer, how it forms and why, what's really going on in the body, and the root cause of cancer specifically in each part of the body. So an in-depth explanation of breast cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, and how this all ties into stress and spirituality. And that's my level 1 training. I think it's a really important course for lots of reasons, obviously. My level 2 training, that is if you want to be more focused on working with people to heal. So level 1 is more about prevention. That's the heavier focus. but some of my students that had cancer reversed their cancer just from that training, because that 15-step tool is really potent. But not everyone. Like, so level 2, then we go deeper to heal childhood trauma, for example. So I just wanted to share that and invite anyone that's interested to join this training, because I'm very passionate about it and there's a lot of value in there. So please join a future training if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely check out his website, and we'll put his contact information in the descriptions below. So definitely make sure you guys check out Paul. And he has a book coming out here soon as well, right?
Yeah, but I'm always so inaccurate with the dates. I'm like, yeah, it'll just be 2 months, and then like 6 months later, it's still not here. So, but
It is supposed to be.
It is very close. It's very close. What does that mean?
You can't rush.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, I mean,
it's coming.
You can't rush something good. So I mean, just take the time that you need for it. But he also has another book out, What's in a Tier. It's a great book as well. So then
it's called The Root Cause of Cancer, and What's in a Tier is the overall title of the series. But yeah, The Root Cause of Cancer, and my website is rootcauseinstitute.com.
Perfect. Awesome.
Beautiful.
Great.
Thanks for the chat, man.
Good to see you guys. Paul. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great seeing you.
You too,
Thanks for putting this on. Blessings, guys.